Hello, everybody. This is Chanea, and this is really late, and it's the final um, contribution. It's the final poem in our July Poem a Day July. Sorry, Marcus. And I just want to first and foremost thank Marcus and Brett for cultivating and curating this space. Marcus is kind of the planner and the person who is extremely engaged and extremely engaging. Brett always has these wonderfully beautiful connections to his life and to his classroom. But this summer, he's really done a really cool job of showing us how he's reading these poems and how they connect to what is literally in front of him. And I think that that's such a beautiful quality to have in a teacher. And I just feel very lucky to be in community with them. So, Paul Robeson is a poem that was new to me until oh my God, not the 19th, until 2019 when I read Akwaeke Emezi's Pet. And Pet is set in this utopian society where monsters have been eradicated. And the slogan of the city of Lucille, where Pet lives, not where Pet lives, where Jam lives, is we are each other's harvest. We are each other's business. We are each other's magnitude and bond. I was not familiar with this particular poem, but reading that book made me go back and I was blown away at all that I didn't know. And I have read Gwendolyn Brooks, but this is something that was off my radar. And so I was really excited to kind of get into a new level of a relationship with an author, with a poet specifically, a Black woman poet who I hadn't had an opportunity to dig deep in. So I'm going to read the poem if that's okay, and then kind of break down my annotations. Paul Robeson by Gwendolyn Brooks. That time we all heard it, cool and clear, cutting across the hot grid of the day. The major voice, the adult voice, foregoing rolling river, foregoing tearful tale of bale and barge and other symptoms of an old despond. Warning, in music words devout and large, that we are each other's harvest. We are each other's business. We are each other's magnitude and bond. In my classes, we snap when we read a poem. I love this poem so much. The end is so beautiful, but something that I realized that I needed to do in order to use this poem in a way that is productive and helpful is I have to provide context. Who is this man? Who is Paul Robeson? And so the first thing that I did when my students walk in is I'm playing his music that day, the day that we analyze this poem. I'm playing his music and you're listening to his soaring bass voice, and it's just it kind of sets the tone for this conversation that we're about to have. They do a little bit of background information. Sometimes we watch videos. Sometimes they do kind of a scavenger hunt. Sometimes they read the lyrics of Old Man River that were changed by Paul Robeson. And yeah, we just kind of dive in. And by the end of class, they're it feels like he saturated our psyches. And so that's a really nice experience. And it's a really nice way to expose students to history and historical context that I think Gwendolyn Brooks does so beautifully. So the outline, I think if you've been following this, you've seen this outline, my 012. Marcus and I are of very similar beliefs that you can't analyze until you know what's going on. And so his octopus really is I love a box. And so we're going to be in a box. But in my 0, I just kind of explain exactly, literally, it's a summary of what's going on. This is so important for scaffolding and for catching mistakes, because if students can't do the 0 and can't tell me what's going on, I can start to correct some of those fundamental issues that may later on, as we analyze, or hinder comprehension. Sorry. Next, after we have a good solid grasp of what's going on. And so I wrote mine over here. I don't know if you can see it very well, but kind of just tells you exactly what happens. And then I start acknowledging and highlighting, and then taking note of choices. My my highlighting got kind of sloppy, so my bad. But yeah, we've got the diction, we've got the repetition, we've got the metaphor. I think that the title is a metaphor. We've got these beautiful, beautiful images about what the voice of Paul Robeson looks like. And in the final column is where we start to put together our analysis. And that's where I come in, right? Because you and I can see the exact same image, right? We can both decide it's an image, or we can both decide it's a metaphor, but the impact that it's going to have on me is going to be very different than the impact it's going to have on you. And it is solidified by our life experiences and the things that we've gone through. So I'm always really interested to see students column 2. I link marker verbs here. I can share a template if anybody's interested. But this is where like the meat and potatoes of everything is. And so when you are starting to look at the fact that when I was starting to look at the fact that this is a metaphor, the beginning, I believe we're talking about a literal historical person, but it is also a metaphor for the ways in which we use our gifts to uplift our communities. And so what is the impact of this metaphor on me? And so I said that it exposes the author's admiration for this person, and it also expresses appreciation for how Robeson uses gifts. So it's both things, right? It's like showing us that this is what this person did, but also saying this is the way, right? I believe that the choices that Brooks make really illustrates the power of a single voice and how that voice has the potential to do community work. The repetition of the words foregoing were really interesting to me. So in the history lesson that we do, and the history lesson that I had to do for myself, I really had to look at the original version of the song Old Man River that Paul Robeson was supposed to sing. And I saw the version that he decided to sing that he felt. I mean, he made a principled stance, right? He forwent. He was foregoing this stereotypical image of what Blackness was, and he refused to kind of play into the despondent and the lowest possible denominator, the ways in which slavery had marked us. And he wanted his voice to be used for like upliftment. And so Brooks takes the example set by Paul Robeson and asks the reader, right, to internalize that. Like, what are my gifts that I can take and hone and then utilize to give back to my community, to uplift to my community? And then the end, the repetition of we are is so important, because I think that there is this like central tenet of like the value of human life in almost all of Brooks's work. But we are each other's, right? We belong to each other. And it doesn't matter, that we have these differences, right? We are here, and by that very fact, we are each other's. And then the word harvest, we are the fruits of each other's labor. The word business, I feel like that's very that's kind of some AAVE, right? We are each other's business. I'm your business. I tell my daughter all the time, you're my business. And I think that that's kind of a nod to that, like, you are my business. You are the thing that I am invested in. You are the thing that I am, that kind of dictates a certain portion of my life. Like, we are each other's business. We are involved, right? Zadie Smith has this beautiful quote in White Teeth about being involved. And I think that pulls from the writing that Brooks does about Paul Robeson. And then finally, that last line, those last two lines, we are each other's magnitude and bond. I mean, we are forces holding each other together. We are each other's, the totality of each other's, what did I say? Of each other's, wait, I think I have it. Just kidding. We hold the totality of each other. We are each other's glue. We are each other. We are of each other. I love starting the year with this poem because I think, one, it's cool that students in whatever class that I'm taking, whether it be composition or American Lit, know that know who Paul Robeson is, right? And then have been introduced to the Gwendolyn Brooks, who is just, But something else that I do is I utilize this poem to kind of establish norms, right? We have this individual and we have this writer who has taken this individual and taken and created a poem from the best parts of who they are and what they what they sowed within their community that made them, so wonderful and beautiful and beloved and also important, and how they are now. Paul Robeson, Gwendolyn Brooks, our ancestors are now our magnitude and bond to carry on. And so I really like the idea of bringing those into my classroom. And so the next thing that I do once we've done all this is that we pick some topics. What is this poem about? What are some big ideas? And so this is what I came up with. I ultimately decided on community. And so the author believes community is the essence of who we are as people. And when we water that by watering and sharing our own gifts, we receive substance, love, and bounty in return. I would get rid of the author believes here. And community is the essence of who we are. And so my students have to write these like beautiful theme statements. And then those theme statements, right, from Paul Robeson on the second or third day of school become the guiding principles of our own classroom. So Ekweke Emezi in PET really inspired me to utilize this poem to set the tone for and to create these norms. And we go back to it. We read it once before Christmas. We are each other's magnitude and bond. There were so many times where I heard my students say, "Oh, mind your business." And the response was, "We are each other's business." And for me, this poem just does a beautiful job of reminding all of us that the gifts that we bring to the table in isolation are great and self-fulfilling, but the point that the overarching idea of life is to be in community with people and to utilize those gifts to sow and sustain that community so that the things that we harvest are beautiful and light and can sustain future generations. It reminds me of that Lord quote from Poetry is Not a Luxury about like, if we dream the same dreams, how can our children be nourished to dream other dreams? And I think that this poem, Brooks, Paul Robeson as a human and Paul Robeson as a character in this poem do such a beautiful job of helping us lay the groundwork for our responsibilities to each other. I adore this poem. I adore the last several lines. I adore the focus on this figure that people don't often talk about, because I do believe that, people who use their gifts to uplift community struggle. They're not, the one guy. They become a part of something bigger and more beautiful that is eventually harvested. So yeah, I want to thank Marcus for in his first days of summer saying, "We're going to do this." And I'm so proud of the conversations that I've been able to have. And I'm so excited and energized to enter the classroom with all of these new poems, but also these new people that I can converse with. It has been an honor to get to know Marcus and Brett in a way that has shown me their passion and their skill, but also like their humanity, and they're exactly who everyone thinks they are. They're so incredible, and I appreciate them for reminding me that we are each other's business and we are each other's magnitude and bond. And I look forward to Poem a Day, July 2026. And maybe after that, we will be doing NCTE with Marcus, Chanea, and Brett. So I love you guys. I love this community. I'm grateful that so many days I've read a poem and I've shared my thoughts and I've read your thoughts, and it has been kind of an anchor through a lot of things that are going on. So I love you. Poetry heals. I thank you. I thank you.